Welcome back to Revolt Black News. Now, we have talked a lot this episode about police reform and potentially destruction and rebuilding. And what our folks on the ground want to know is what they need to do to make change. But now we're going to bring in a retired police officer to help us get some more perspective and information about these issues. In fact, she's a retired LAPD sergeant. Welcome to the show, Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey.
Thank you.
So wonderful to see you, Sarge. Now, just the other day, you tweeted this. You said of Dante Wright that it was murder, not a mistake. You went on to say that the officer seemed to remember part of her training that required taser announcement, but cannot differentiate between duty weapon and taser. The point you make, Sergeant Cheryl, is clear and convincing. Do you think that your fellow law enforcement officers tend to see it as clearly as you do? And do you think that's why she ended up resigning? And now it's being reported that she will face second-degree manslaughter charges.
Well, certainly, those in law enforcement who look like me understand. And listen, just police in general, it's something to be on that department and know the culture and know the lingo. And so let me just tell you what I know after having spent 20 years in a uniform myself, which is, police officers. And listen, I'm preaching to the choir. We've seen them create an audio record that's contrary to what's really going on. We've seen officers say, quit fighting me, quit resisting when there's no resistance going on. And so this is a veteran tenured officer, 26 years in uniform. And she understands that training requires when you do use a taser, which is located on her weak side, so that means she's right hand dominant, she has to reach across her body to get it, which is an awkward movement compared to just reaching straight down for your duty weapon on your strong side. And we know when you deploy a taser, you say, taser, 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 so that other officers can get out of the way and not be subjected to being charged as well. And so she knew all of that to do, but somehow she messed up and she grabbed her duty weapon. We know our weapons intimately. We deal with them constantly. We have to be familiar with them because our life depends on it. We train so much on the Los Angeles Police Department with our weapon holstering, unholstering, being able to do it when you're not looking, loading, unloading. And so all of these things are second nature. You don't make that kind of mistake. And for her to just decide at the 26th hour or the 11th hour to resign, understand resign means she retired. She's got enough time and grade to just go ahead and retire, draw her service pension, which I know causes a lot of angst for folks, and then wait and see what happens if she's charged criminally.
Let me ask you this about the community and Black cops. I'm always appreciative of having conversations like this where I can speak to Black law enforcement, or in your case, former law enforcement, very directly. There's some people in our community that have empathy and concern for our Black law enforcement officers. And then there's those in the community, Sergeant Cheryl, I ain't got to tell you, that just see law enforcement that are Black as well as the opposition. From your experience, what's the morale like for Black law enforcement officers in general right now in this moment? Do you see law enforcement that is Black rallying together to have an experience that can increase the relationship of trust between Black law enforcement and the community?
I think it varies from department to department. Listen, there's 18,000 police departments across the United States, and understanding that the degree to which they have Black officers, at least in LAPD, I can only speak to for sure, it seems to be shrinking. I mean, there are fewer and fewer. I think we make up 9% of the Los Angeles Police Department. And so within that, we really don't have a place to go. Every department has some form of a Black Police Officers Association. Some are more stronger and more active, more proactive with their members than others. But for the most part, you have to be built a certain way to do this job. It really is not for everybody. And you can't come on any police department thinking you're going to make friends internally or externally. And so for me, it was never difficult because when I joined the LAPD, I joined knowing I'm a Black woman first. I'm a mother of 4 sons. And I had decided that when I joined this department, I joined because I needed a good paying job. But I also knew that I was going to treat everyone I encountered the same way I would want you to treat my own children should you ever encounter them. And a lot of it, really, Ebony, it's just common sense, right? And if sense were common, everybody would have it. But I think it's so important for Black folks, given all the obstacles that they put in our way to get on these departments, you need to get on it. You need to be there. Change will come from the outside, but certainly you can have uh, you can have influence internally. Wouldn't it have been nice if there was someone who was like me, standing outside of a Tatiana Jefferson's bedroom window when Aaron Dean decided to fire a round in there, or someone seated uh, someone present when Derek Chauvin was seated on Mr. Floyd's neck, to pull him off and say, "That's enough, get off, what are you doing?" If we're not there, we can't have that kind of influence and input. And so it's so important. There's so many things. There's not one thing that's going to fix this. It's institutional, it's systemic, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And it's also, Ebony, top down, because we have police chiefs and we have sheriffs who condone this craziness. There was a sheriff who was giving out gift cards to his officers when they would mistreat Black folks. We have here in Los Angeles on the LA County Sheriff's Department, we have 17 internal gangs, regulators, executioners, jump out boys who get tattoos like gangsters do when they mistreat or kill somebody. And the sheriff, Alex Villanueva, is aware of it. And so, how do you deal with that?
Rotten from the inside, like you said, Sergeant Cheryl. You know, and I think what you're making is an important point, though, right? Like me personally, I've always felt it was important for us as a Black community to always at least create the space for that kind of internal change to come from spaces that we know have been historically corrupt against our people. That includes law enforcement, that includes prosecutor offices, right? We have to make space for Black folks to ascend into those ranks and be bombastic change agents from the inside. But you know, there's a counter argument as well. Nobody put it better, in my opinion, than James Baldwin, who wrote this. He said that he feared Black cops more than white cops because the Black cops had to work so much harder on your head to prove to himself and his colleagues that he was not like all the others. I know you've heard variations of that sentiment throughout your career, Sergeant Cheryl. I know you have. What is your reaction to that?
Yeah, and you know, and I think there's some validity to that, but it's not just unique to law enforcement. Listen, you know, Black folks in general, we're always afraid to do what white folks don't have a problem doing. You know, we don't want to help each other, whether it's in law enforcement or whether you work at a hospital, you know, because we're afraid that if we are, you know, too helpful to someone who looks like us, is going to be a problem. And I've certainly experienced that on the LAPD. I talk about the racism and what I refer to as reverse racism, Black folks not wanting to help me when I thought, you know, that's where I should go to get the most help. But it's certainly there's some validity to that. But also, like I said, I'm sure there are certainly many like-minded folks out there who are taking courses that have to do with criminal justice right now who are would be well suited and well placed on some of these departments. And you know, like I said, when you come on, if you come on knowing and understanding what you're going up against, so when it happens to you, see, I wasn't looking for friends, I wasn't looking for anybody to be nice to me, Ebony. You know, I had partners, I'd get in the car with them, and for 8 hours, they wouldn't even speak to me. And my position was, okay, works for me. Don't talk to me. I don't talk to you. But what I wasn't going to allow them to do was mistreat anybody who looked like me. And eventually I developed a reputation. It wasn't a good one in their mind, but what they didn't do in front of me was commit police misconduct because they didn't know if they could trust me, and they couldn't.
As we wrap up this segment, you know, here at Revolt Black News, we like to stay in the space of solution. Sergeant Cheryl, are there any other big takeaways that you think create the path forward for policing in America and in Black communities at this moment?
There's much for us to do. I say get involved and get engaged. When you have an opportunity to attend a community meeting and have your voice heard, go speak to the police chiefs, meet with the mayors, meet with legislators. If you don't know of an organization in your community, start one. Get involved, get engaged, get on juries. It's so important. I know that there are obstacles and stumbling blocks that they put in our way, but we have got to, because if you don't show up, then it's an easy fix, right? So we need to get on these juries. We need to vote. We need to vote for people who are like-minded. If you don't like your district attorney, then start looking for people in the community that you can help put up. If you don't like your mayor, replace them. Politicians understand one thing, and that's votes. And so I say the onus is on us as a community to not sit around and wait for other folks to fix it for us. Get involved and get engaged.
Sergeant Cheryl, that's why we appreciate you here. We appreciate your willingness to have frank, honest, accountable conversation about the issue because only talking and doing things about it are going to create that change that we all seek. Listen, y'all, we're going to take a quick break.